I'm Andrea Schrader from the Creative Dream Incubator, and this is episode 2 in our pop-up podcast on creative dreaming versus the end of the world. So in each short episode, we are exploring one thing that's coming up for creative dreamers right now in this time of dramatic change in our world. So what I wanted to talk about today is this issue that's coming up for a lot of people around I'm so stressed out by the news that I don't have the creative energy I need for my creative dreams. So I touched on this in yesterday's episode, talking about how we don't want to just stick our head in the sand and pretend that there's nothing going on and pretend that the world doesn't need our attention. Because it does. We are a part of the world, so I'm not advocating that. But the other side of that spectrum is to, sacrifice yourself and your dreams completely in an effort to save the world, right? So that's those two things are on a spectrum, and that we are generally going to be somewhere on that spectrum, and that only you know where is the right place for you to be. However, if you're feeling so stressed out from the news that you can't create what you want to create, you're likely watching too much news. And you can think about that and decide for yourself, well, is that true? Am I watching too much news? And what would be an appropriate amount? So we do tend to be bombarded by it. And one thing I think is happening is that, each one of us chooses how we engage with the news on our own. And then we go on social media and other people choose for us what they want us to watch because they're putting it into our streams, right? So sometimes the question of how much news you're watching is also more about how much social media are you ingesting and why. One thing about social media is that it's really better if you understand why you're going to Facebook or wherever, what you want to get from it, and how long you're staying there, and also how to know if you've gone off track of those things. So if I know, okay, I'm going to Facebook because I want to check in with and see how my friends are doing, and I want to do that for 10 minutes, and I want it to be fun. I just want to kind of playfully check in with people, and I know that I've gone off track if I'm there more than 10 minutes, or if I start to feel heavy, or if I start to feel kind of like that scrolly, like I have to keep looking, and I don't even know what I'm looking for. Those are signs that I've gotten caught in the web of social media. So that means I'm off of my original goal, which was 10 minutes and feeling light and fun and just connecting with people. So there's that, like understanding what's happening in the ways that you're engaging with media, because that's on you. You are responsible for how you are engaging with social media. And remember that Facebook, for example, puts energy into being as addictive as possible. So it's actively trying to keep you there. So how are you actively trying to manage your participation in it? So there's that kind of practical things. Then there's also the fact that even if you're watching what is an appropriate amount of news for you, it's overwhelming as shit right now. Like everything is overwhelming, and of course we're having a hard time. Like your creative energy flows through you. If you are overwhelmed, of course this impacts how your creative energy is going to flow. So what does that mean for you? Like, it's good to really be more specific when you say I'm overwhelmed and I can't do my work. Again, there's always our inner critics, the parts of us who are in resistance who will use anything as an excuse. So is it just that your inner critic is saying, sweetie, you're too overwhelmed. I don't think you should do it. I think you should just keep looking on Facebook, or you should go take a nap, or, because the inner critics are really, really sneaky about what they will use to try to get you to stop doing your creative work. So there's that. You need to really sit with this question and look at, is that what's happening? If that's not what's happening, if you're just too overwhelmed to have that real creative flow, then you need to look at, well, what encourages creative flow. So I have to be in extreme self-care mode all the time right now in order to maintain my productivity for the projects that I want to be doing. So for me, that looks like being really strict about bedtime. Bedtime is a big one for me. If I have enough sleep, everything's okay. And so what do I need to have the best bedtime? Usually is like there's this whole routine, including doing yoga and meditation at night, meditation again in the morning, nature, bike rides. Yeah, there's so much for me that I can do that helps me feel really good. And I only know about all these things because I experiment and I explore. And that's what you need to do. No one can tell you how to take better care of your creative energy. That's on you. This is about 7 years ago now, so I think some of you will remember this, but probably most of you won't. But when I found my dream loft where I live now, I had a house, and the dream loft was just being built, and I sold my house, and then the builder was very slow to finish building, and I ended up living in my parents' basement for 9 months. And I just felt like such an epic failure, I will say, because I was just like in my first year of being self-employed, and I had been so sure of myself, and then I ended up in my parents' basement. And it wasn't because I couldn't afford my mortgage, it was just because I bought a new house. And so, but it still felt that like I'm in my parents' basement thing. So that was really unpleasant, but it also served to be an amazing boot camp. So it's like, okay, this is not the ideal home for me. This is not like, especially because of like this loft that I live in has amazing sun, and there's all these things about it that I was looking forward to. And it's like, in this basement, I have none of that. So what am I going to do instead to help fuel my creativity? So it ended up being a really creative time of learning how to take better care of my moods and my energy, my emotions, my creativity. And so I think of it as a boot camp in that way, because it's really served me in all the years since that, you know, I know so much more about how to take really good care of myself. And so that's something that you may need to focus on right now if you're feeling really like bogged down by all of the news and unable to create in the ways you want to create. Yeah, that is what you need to look at. If you've already looked at monitoring how much news is coming in, then the next thing you really need to look at, how am I going to take better care of my creativity? And how am I going to like nurture my creative self, and what do I really need? And a lot of that is physical self-care. So like the sleep and nutrition and exercise and fresh air and that. But there's also emotional self-care and energetic self-care and mental self-care. So there's a lot, right? There's always a lot we can do to take really, really good care of ourselves. And you may need to get creative in figuring that out. But I do find, you know, the more coming at you, the more overwhelmed you are, the more important that self-care is. And the really good thing is that when you're doing everything to take really extra good care of yourself, you're mining your own self for really great creative material. Like, I think you can do better work than you would have had you not been forced to take better care of yourself by the overwhelming news. So I don't mean that I think that it's a good thing that there's so much bad in the world, not at all. But I think that we can respond by amplifying our creative voices, and that is going to actually make a difference. And we will talk more about that in further episodes. So yeah, I want you to just really spend some time thinking about that today. What do you need to do to take better care of your creative self so that you can creatively act in whatever way feels right for you? If it's creatively responding to what's happening, if it's just making the art you feel called to make. I think the world is kind of calling out for us to make more art and to speak our truth. So what do you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can do that? And I'll see you back here tomorrow for our next episode in the Pop-Up podcast on creative dreaming versus the end of the world.